Imagine you have two students. They're taking the exact same standardized test on a Tuesday morning.
Right.
Both of them are, 16 years old. They're both holding a number 2 pencil.
Yeah, the classic setup.
Exactly.
Oh, well.
And both are just staring down this math section that will supposedly determine their entire college readiness.
Supposedly being the key word there.
Right. Because what the test results will never show you, what they just can't show you, is the reality outside the margins of that paper.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, one of those students is sitting in a school with fiber optic broadband. They have a newly constructed robotics wing.
Yep.
And a guidance department heavily staffed with, dedicated college counselors.
And the other student?
Well, the other student is sitting in a building where the library budget was just slashed. And it was slashed just to pay for emergency repairs to a failing HVAC system.
Oh.
Yeah. And their chemistry class hasn't run a real physical lab experiment in maybe 3 years because they just can't afford the materials.
They just don't have the baseline resources.
Exactly. Yet at the end of the day, our society takes the scores from those two drastically different environments, prints them on a spreadsheet, and pretends we are objectively measuring the inherent potential of those two human beings.
We treat the output as if it just, exists in a vacuum.
Right.
We categorize one student as advanced and the other as falling behind. And we completely strip away the context of the infrastructure that actually produced those results.
And that is the discomforting reality we are wading into today.
It really is.
Welcome to our deep dive. It is Monday, May 11th, 2026.
126.
Yeah, and if you are listening to this right now, I know exactly who you are.
You're the learner.
Exactly. You are the learner. You are someone who wants the deep structural aha moments, but without being buried in academic jargon.
Without the overwhelm.
Right. And today, we have a mission that is going to fundamentally challenge the baseline assumptions you hold about society itself.
We're really getting into it today.
We are. We're pulling from a set of massive, deeply provocative excerpts from a text called The Educational Commons.
AI and the Master Plumb Line.
That's the one. And the core question we're going to explore with you today is basically this. What if the entire foundation of how we school children,
The whole thing.
the printed textbooks we buy, the 180-day calendar we follow, the very metrics we use to define what makes a child successful, what if all of it is built on a structural illusion?
It's a heavy question. Because the author of this text, they don't just want to patch a few holes in the current system.
Yo, not at all.
They are diagnosing a terminal illness in the fundamental architecture of learning. And they're proposing a radical, ground-up redesign of what public education actually means.
A total teardown.
Yeah. So my goal today is to synthesize these incredibly complex ideas, things about artificial intelligence, dynamic living curriculums, and, well, the reclamation of wasted time.
Right.
We want to synthesize all of that into a mental model that you can actually use.
A practical blueprint.
Exactly. We are going to unpack a blueprint for an entirely new kind of social contract.
Okay, let's unpack this, because before we can look at that futuristic blueprint, we really have to look unflinchingly at the author's critique of the world we currently live in.
We have to understand the baseline.
Yeah. And the source text begins with this just blistering attack on the concept of ZIP code education.
Oh, it's intense.
But what really caught my attention is who the author chooses not to blame.
That's a crucial point.
They make this incredibly careful distinction between human effort and structural failure. They argue that the current American school model is not failing because of teachers.
Right. Definitely not the teachers.
In fact, teachers are the ones masking the failure. They're supplying their own classrooms out of their own bank accounts.
Buying pencils and notebooks.
Exactly. And it isn't a failure of local communities either.
No, parents are constantly organizing booster clubs.
Right. Running bake sales, volunteering time.
Doing whatever they can.
Yeah. The failure, according to the text, is a profound structural inequality based entirely on the purchasing power of a school district.
And that separation between the human element and the structural element, it's just vital to understanding the rest of the text.
It really frames everything.
It does. The author is pointing out that a district's reality is dictated by its local tax base.
Pure geography.
Pure geographic luck. By simple luck, one district can afford an educational reality that is practically science fiction compared to a district just 10 miles down the road.
10 miles away, yeah.
The wealthier district is securing top-tier lab equipment. They're maintaining massive digital archive subscriptions.
Oh, and hiring specialized tutors.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Upgrading physical facilities to completely optimize learning. while the less wealthy district is trapped in a completely different financial paradigm.
Totally different world.
They're forced to hold on to outdated textbooks for like an extra 5 years.
Right.
They have to cut library acquisitions. They're forced to reduce elective offerings, weaken their arts and sports programs.
Just agonizing choices.
Making impossible choices between buying updated academic materials and, say, fixing a leaky roof.
It's what the author calls the purchasing lottery.
The purchasing lottery, yeah.
Whatever the district's tax base can afford just becomes the absolute ceiling of what a child is given.
It's an artificial ceiling.
And the critique gets incredibly sharp when it addresses how we judge the students who are trapped inside that lottery.
This is where it gets really uncomfortable.
Right, because we have built this entire national industry of standardized measurement. And the author argues that this is fundamentally dishonest under our current financial model.
Well, the dishonesty stems from the illusion of equal footing.
Exactly.
Every single year, society publishes these massive comparisons of test scores.
We rank everyone.
Right. We rank schools based on graduation rates, college readiness metrics, attendance records, and we lay all this data out on a table as if the starting conditions for these students were identical.
As if it's a fair race.
But a school with state-of-the-art resources, stable food programs, and highly secure buildings, I mean, it's not operating on the same planet as a school dealing with outdated materials, weak infrastructure, and students facing food insecurity.
Not even close.
So, to take the metrics from those two fundamentally unequal environments and call it an objective assessment of a child's intellect, or even a teacher's skill,
It's absurd.
the author terms it a deep societal deception.
I kept thinking of an analogy while I was reading that section.
Oh.
Yeah, imagine we were running a national health initiative, and we want to weigh every child in the country to check their growth.
Okay.
But instead of a standard medical scale, we've placed them all on entirely different machines.
I see where you're going.
Right. So one kid is standing on a perfectly calibrated digital scale. Another is standing on this rusted spring scale from like the 1970s.
Yeah, totally inaccurate.
And a third is standing on a scale that is literally missing a leg. It's leaning to one side.
Yep.
So we line all the kids up, we write down the numbers on the readout, and then we just pretend those numbers mean the exact same thing.
Which is crazy.
It is. We are essentially grading the child based on the condition of the scale.
That's a great way to put it.
So the obvious question here is, if the scale itself is broken and crooked, how does the author propose we actually measure a student's potential fairly?
Well, you can't diagnose a crooked structure using a crooked tool.
Right.
You have to introduce a perfect objective standard. And this is exactly where the author introduces the central metaphor that gives the text its title,
The plumb line.
the plumb line. Now, in masonry and construction, a plumb line is one of the oldest, simplest tools in human history.
It's literally just a string. Right.
Basically, yeah. It is nothing more than a weight suspended from a string.
Uh-huh.
And because it is governed entirely by the laws of gravity, it's completely neutral.
It has no agenda.
Exactly.
Right.
It doesn't care about the architect's ego. It doesn't flatter the builder. It doesn't care how much money you spent on the bricks.
Mhm.
It simply, undeniably reveals whether the wall is straight or crooked.
It's an absolute truth in a physical form. I mean, the string cannot lie.
And the text argues that public education is entirely lacking a plumb line right now.
We don't have one.
We don't. So the solution proposed is to build a calibrated national learning foundation.
The educational commons.
Yes. Yeah. This educational commons would be a shared baseline of curriculum, foundational knowledge, skill assessments, and learning diagnostics.
Okay.
And the critical factor here is that this baseline must be identical and universally available to every single school and every single student in the country.
No matter where they live.
Completely, regardless of the purchasing power of their specific ZIP code.
Now, I have to say, the moment the phrase national baseline or universal curriculum is mentioned, people are going to throw up defensive wall.
Oh, absolutely. Red flags everywhere.
Right, because the immediate fear is this rigid, dystopian, one-size-fits-all system, something that just steamrolls over local culture and forces every classroom in the country to become a sterile, identical box.
And the author anticipates that exact fear.
They do.
They make a massive philosophical distinction to counter it. They define the plumb line explicitly as a common floor, not a forced ceiling.
A common floor.
Yes. The objective isn't to erase cultural differences or flatten the educational experience. The objective is to guarantee a minimum standard of truth, and quality.
So everyone starts at the same level.
Exactly. Every child, whether they are in a wealthy suburb or a severely underfunded rural district, is guaranteed the exact same unshakable floor of knowledge.
But they can still customize it.
Absolutely. Local communities retain the absolute freedom to build their own unique structures on top of that floor.
Right.
They're actually encouraged to integrate their regional history, local ecology, indigenous languages, specific industrial focuses, and their cultural identity.
Okay, that makes sense.
The plumb line just ensures that the foundation holding all of that up is structurally sound.
Okay, looking at the logistics of actually building that common floor. This is where the text requires a total mental reset regarding what a textbook even is.
It's a complete paradigm shift.
It really is. The author introduces this concept of the educational commons, and it essentially demands the immediate death of the frozen physical textbook.
Good riddance.
Right, because think about the mechanical reality of how a school buys books right now. A district gets funding, they buy a class set of biology textbooks, and the moment those books come off the printing press, they are dead.
They're obsolete almost instantly.
Exactly. They're like a bug trapped in amber.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, I mean, science is actively happening in the real world. New discoveries, new genetic maps, new disease models. But that book is frozen in the exact year it was printed.
Right.
And any factual errors or outdated theories remain locked in those pages until the next funding cycle, which could be 10 or 15 years away.
Depending on the district.
Exactly. A rich district might replace that amber every 3 years. But a poor district is stuck staring at the same dead bug for decades.
Unacceptable.
So the author argues that the educational commons must be a living system. So what does this all mean for the actual knowledge kids are absorbing?
Well, the shift from a static object to a living system requires a totally new architecture for knowledge.
Okay.
The author outlines that the curriculum inside the educational commons is built on two distinct interacting layers.
2 layers.
Right. The first layer is the stable foundation. This is the careful, highly sequenced, non-impulsive bedrock of human knowledge.
The stuff that doesn't really change.
Exactly. We are talking about arithmetic, foundational grammar, the steps of the scientific method, the historical text of the Constitution.
Okay, yeah.
This layer does not change rapidly, nor should it, honestly, because children require cognitive structure, and a functioning society requires a shared grammatical and mathematical language.
Right. You definitely do not want the fundamental rules of fractions or algebra shifting under a kid's feet every Tuesday just based on a new trend.
No, that would be chaos.
The bedrock has to be solid.
But the bedrock alone is insufficient. Which brings us to the second layer, the living frontier.
The living frontier.
This is the layer where human understanding is actively developing. This transforms the textbook from a physical product you buy once into a continuous knowledge service.
Oh, wow.
So to use your biology example, a student learns the basic mechanics of a cell, the nucleus, the mitochondria, from the stable foundation layer.
Right.
But simultaneously, the living frontier layer is feeding them actively updating research. Things like regenerative medicine, CRISPR gene editing, and real-time mapping of the human microbiome.
That is just incredible. And think about how that completely changes, like the study of civics.
Oh, drastically.
The stable foundation gives you the 3 branches of government and the concept of federalism.
Right.
But the living frontier layer is actively ingesting real-time Supreme Court rulings, new state legislation, and current public policy debates.
As they
happen. The student isn't just reading a retrospective summary of how the government worked 20 years ago. They're watching the machinery of society operate in real time.
Exactly.
And history classes, they would still cover the core timeline of antiquity. But when a new archaeological discovery is made, or, say, a newly declassified digital archive is released, that information filters into the living curriculum immediately.
Instantly available.
The student's relationship to knowledge just shifts entirely. It goes from passive memorization of dead facts to active observation of a growing human endeavor.
And we must tie this back to the core concept of the plumb line, because the equity implications here are staggering.
They really are.
Under this dual-layer system, the school district with the absolute lowest local funding in the country has the exact same instantaneous access to the living frontier of genetics and civics as the most elite, well-funded school in the nation.
It levels the playing field.
Completely. The curriculum ceases to be a weapon of the purchasing lottery. It becomes a piece of shared national infrastructure.
Okay, but logistically, this is where my mind hits a massive roadblock.
Let's hear it.
If you have a curriculum that is constantly updating, pulling in real-time legal precedents, mapping live genetic research, and doing all of this while simultaneously adapting the reading difficulty for 30 different kids in a single room.
It's a lot to manage.
How on earth does that actually work? If you differentiate a reading assignment, let's say an article on microbiome research,
Okay.
you might need one version of that text using simple, direct syntax for a kid who struggles with reading, and another version using collegiate-level vocabulary for the kids sitting right next to them.
While preserving the exact same factual nodes.
Yes. No human teacher can possibly manage that cognitive load.
It's impossible.
You cannot ask one human being to be an expert in foundational algebra, the cutting edge of microbiology, constitutional law, and simultaneously operate as a real-time translator for 30 different reading levels while also managing classroom behavior.
Right.
The human brain just cannot compute that many variables at once.
Which is exactly why the author argues that a human being shouldn't be attempting to do it at all.
Wait, really?
Yes. The logistics you just described point to the inevitable breakdown of the current model. To run a living, perfectly tailored curriculum, you need an engine capable of infinite simultaneous processing.
Okay.
This is where the text introduces artificial intelligence. And not just as a gimmick or a background administrative tool.
What is that then?
It's introduced as an entirely new faculty layer.
Okay, I have to pause and push back on
I
this,
figured you might.
because I know exactly how this sounds to a lot of people listening.
Sure.
The moment you suggest AI should take over direct instruction, it sounds incredibly insulting to the teaching profession.
It sounds like replacement.
It sounds like we are trying to automate away human connection just to save money. Like, are we basically proposing that we turn the classroom into a cold, sterile assembly line run by server farms?
People will definitely have that reaction.
People are going to violently reject this if they feel like we're replacing a child's human mentor with a chatbot.
That visceral rejection is completely understandable, and the text actually dedicates significant time to unpacking it.
How do they justify it?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, the author insists that this transition is about role clarification, not dehumanization.
Role clarification.
Right. They introduce this uncomfortable concept called the classroom throne.
The classroom throne.
Yeah. Our current system, they argue, is structured to protect adult institutional ego.
Oh, wow.
We have built a culture where the adult must be the primary fountain of all knowledge in the room. But the purpose of education is not to provide a throne for adults to feel authoritative.
Right, the purpose is the student.
Exactly. The purpose is the transmission of truth and the maximal development of the student. If a tool exists that can transmit that knowledge more accurately, more patiently, and more equitably, then refusing to use it out of professional pride is a disservice to the child.
Okay, let's talk about the mechanics of how this AI faculty layer actually works in practice then, because the examples the author gives are wild.
They're fascinating.
A human teacher is constrained by linear time. They can only explain a concept one way to the whole room, or they can help one child at a time while the other 29 just wait.
Right, it's a bottleneck.
But the AI faculty layer is capable of simultaneous, individualized engagement.
Completely parallel processing.
Yeah. It can be explaining the logic of fractions to one student using visual blocks and breaking down the iambic pentameter of Shakespeare for another student.
In the same exact moment.
Right, while guiding a third through a coding simulation and translating a history lesson into a fourth student's native language with zero latency, all in the exact same millisecond.
The sheer processing volume is one thing, but what's fascinating here is what the author calls its infinite diagnostic patience.
Infinite patience.
Think about how a human teacher operates when a student is failing 8th grade algebra. The human teacher looks at the failed test, sees that the student couldn't balance the equation, and tries to reteach the algebraic formula.
Which is the logical thing to do.
Right. But the AI operates differently. The AI tracks the micro-interactions, how long the student hesitates before answering, the specific sequential errors they make, the keystrokes.
Wow, it sees everything.
By mapping those data points against a vast cognitive architecture, the AI realizes that the student isn't actually struggling with algebra at all.
Wait, what are they struggling with?
The underlying mechanism of their failure is a lack of basic multiplication fluency from 3 years prior.
Oh my goodness.
The cognitive load of trying to remember 6 times 8 is leaving them with no working memory to balance the algebraic equation.
And a human teacher managing 30 kids simply cannot dig through 3 years of a kid's mental history to find that one specific broken node.
It's just not possible.
It's completely opposite. The AI identifies the broken node instantly.
Instantly.
And here's the emotional component. It addresses the gap without shame.
Yes, that's huge.
It generates extra foundational practice without a sigh of frustration. It slows the pace down without irritation. And it repeats the lesson 100 times over without a single ounce of resentment.
Without resentment, that is a powerful phrase from the text.
It really stuck with me because humans get tired, they get burned out, they bring their own stress into the classroom.
Naturally, we're human.
And AI doesn't. But to go back to my earlier pushback, the fear of dehumanizing the classroom, the author uses a really brilliant analogy to explain why human teachers aren't going anywhere.
The calculator analogy.
Yes, they compare the AI to a calculator or a microscope. A scientific calculator can perform mental math millions of times faster than a human, but the existence of the calculator doesn't replace the need for human mathematical reasoning.
It just elevates it.
Right, it just allows the mathematician to tackle bigger problems. A microscope can see cellular structures the human eye cannot, but the microscope doesn't make the scientist obsolete.
Exactly. The emergence of the AI faculty layer simply redefines what a human adult is actually needed for in a school building.
Which is?
If the AI is handling the heavy lifting of direct, individualized, endlessly patient academic instruction, the human teacher is finally liberated. They're freed from being a raw information delivery mechanism.
They don't have to just dispense facts.
Right. Their role elevates significantly. The human becomes utterly essential for embodiment.
Embodiment.
Yes. Children need physical safety. They need emotional mentorship. They need moral formation.
They need role models.
They need an adult to help them navigate complex social conflicts, to interpret nuanced human situations, and to cultivate character. The school is not just a data transfer center. It is a living social environment, and humans must govern the social layer.
So we aren't automating away the human connection. We are actually making room for it.
Precisely.
By outsourcing the data delivery to the AI, the teacher actually has the time and energy to be a true mentor.
It's a much more humane job for the teacher.
I can grasp that. I really can. But I still see a massive glaring red flag here.
Let's talk about it.
If AI is the engine driving this entire educational commons, if it is responsible for the direct instruction of every child in the country, who exactly controls the AI?
$1 million question.
Right, because if we just hand over the minds of the next generation to a massive tech monopoly, haven't we just created a dystopian nightmare where one single corporation dictates what every child believes?
That is the single greatest vulnerability of the entire proposal. And the author is hyper-aware of it.
I hope so.
They dedicate a massive portion of the text to the governance of the commons. Because this raises an important question. They explicitly warn against the danger of algorithmic inequality.
Algorithmic inequality.
Right. If this transition is left purely to the open market, wealthy school districts will simply purchase the most advanced luxury AI tutors, the ones with the best diagnostic capabilities.
And the poorer districts?
Poor districts will be left relying on basic, outdated, or worse, ad-supported AI models that harvest student data.
Oh, gross. So instead of ZIP code education based on which physical textbooks you can afford, we just invent a new ZIP code education based on which algorithm you can afford.
Exactly. The purchasing lottery just goes digital.
Which is exactly why the author argues that the educational commons must be legally structured as public interest infrastructure.
Yes.
It cannot be wholly owned by OpenAI or Google or Anthropic or traditional textbook publishers.
It has to be independent.
Right. Private companies can contribute tools and architecture to it. State agencies and universities can help build it. But the foundation itself must remain independent and fiercely guarded against monopolistic capture.
And the text gets incredibly specific about how you enforce that independence.
It's all about forced transparency.
Exactly.
To prevent corporate secrecy or ideological bias from quietly slipping into the curriculum, the author mandates strict governance rules. Like, there must be regular public audits of the AI's logic.
And we can see how it works.
Right. There must be open version histories, meaning anyone can look up exactly when a piece of curriculum was altered and who authorized the change.
Full accountability.
There has to be a clear, traceable source trail for every factual claim the AI makes.
And crucially, the text insists that offline and printable access to the curriculum must always be preserved.
So it never becomes a black box?
Exactly. The system can never be allowed to become an unreadable digital black box. The governance structure is designed entirely around truth, public safety, and rapid correction.
Rather than preserving corporate trade secrets or institutional ego.
Precisely.
So what does this all mean for the physical space? Taking all of this together, it brings up a really concerning logical conclusion.
Okay, what's that?
If the curriculum is an omnipresent digital commons, and the primary academic instruction is being handled beautifully by an AI faculty layer, and it's all perfectly accessible online,
I see where you're going.
don't we just inevitably end up locking kids in their bedrooms staring at screens all day? I mean, I can almost hear the local politicians and budget hawks rubbing their hands together saying, this is fantastic. We can defund and sell off the physical school buildings entirely and save millions.
Oh, the author aggressively and preemptively attacks that conclusion.
Thank goodness.
They refer to the screen-only bedroom isolation model as a cheap and degraded version of the future.
A cheap and degraded version.
Yes. The text makes a beautiful and vital distinction here. The digital commons provides the curriculum spine, but the physical school must remain the living body.
The spine and the body. How do those two things interact financially? Because right now, schools are broke.
Let's look at the current economic realities of the public school system.
Okay.
Nationwide, we spend billions of dollars on deeply inefficient practices.
Like what?
We spend fortunes on fragmented, rolling textbook replacement cycles. Thousands of individual districts all duplicate the exact same software subscriptions and administrative overhead.
Everyone buying the same things separately.
Exactly. By unifying the knowledge base into a single national digital commons, the public education system eliminates an astronomical amount of financial waste.
Okay, so there are huge savings.
Massive.
Yeah.
But the author's core economic argument is that those savings absolutely must not vanish into general tax cuts or get swallowed by corporate vendors.
Right.
Those billions of dollars in savings must be surgically redirected into the physical realities of the local school.
Because, as the author points out, the student is not just a brain floating in a jar.
The text states it very bluntly. They say, hungry children do not learn the same way as fed children.
It's just a biological fact.
A student sitting in an unsafe building with failing heating does not process information the same way as a student in a stable, secure facility.
Obviously not.
By using the AI and the digital commons to completely solve the problem of information scarcity and knowledge inequity, the system frees up the financial resources needed to solve the physical scarcity.
Wow. So we are talking about using the textbook savings to guarantee high-quality breakfasts and lunches for every kid.
Every single day.
We are talking about hiring more physical counselors, upgrading the safety of the buildings, building massive outdoor learning spaces and community gardens.
Exactly.
We could finally fully fund the physical workshops, the art studios, the music programs, the science labs, and the athletic departments.
It represents a complete inversion of the dystopian, isolating fear people have of AI.
It really does.
The AI does not exist to isolate the child in a digital room. The AI exists to handle the immense burden of data transfer so flawlessly and so cheaply that the physical school can finally afford to feed the child, to protect the child.
And to give them a physical space to paint, build, and play.
Yes. The technology is leveraged to make the school profoundly more human and physically alive.
Okay, taking a step back here.
Yeah.
So far, we have unpacked what is being taught, the living dual-layer curriculum.
Right.
We have explored how it is taught and accessed, the infinitely patient AI faculty layer, and we've detailed where this happens, the reinvigorated, fully funded physical body of the school.
So what's left?
Well, as I was reading through the outline of this text, the author dropped a massive structural bombshell about when we learn.
Ah, yes, the calendar.
And honestly, this next section forced me to completely rethink my own childhood. The author argues that the entire temporal structure of education, the calendar itself, is fundamentally broken.
This is the moment where the concept of the educational commons transitions from simply challenging the textbook industry to aggressively challenging the entire societal calendar.
It's a huge leap.
It is. The author introduces a concept called the full-year learning architecture, and they take direct aim at the sacred cow of American education, the 180-day school year and the massive summer dead zone.
Okay, let's unpack this and do the math on this, because when you actually lay the numbers out, the current system looks absurd.
It really does.
We accept the 180-day instructional year as if it were a law of physics, but a standard calendar year contains roughly 260 weekdays. Now, the author is not suggesting we abolish weekends, and they aren't suggesting we turn childhood into a grinding 365-day industrial factory.
No, not at all.
But they pose a simple mathematical scenario. What if we utilize those 260 weekdays differently?
Okay.
Like if we gave students one full week off at the end of every single quarter, so 4 weeks of vacation scattered throughout the year, which is 20 weekdays off.
We are still left with 240 potential instructional days.
Exactly. That is 60 additional days of learning every single year compared to our current 180-day model.
And when you begin to compound those 60 days over the entire lifespan of a child's K-12 public education, the sheer volume of recovered time is staggering.
It is paradigm shattering. Let's run the compounding math. 60 extra instructional days a year multiplied by the 13 years a kid spends in K-12 education equals 780 extra days.
Wow.
Right. If you divide those 780 days by the traditional 180-day school year, that is 4.3 traditional school years recovered.
You're finding 4 extra years.
You are literally reclaiming over 4 years of lost educational time simply by utilizing the weekdays that already exist on the calendar.
It's mind-blowing.
Even if we are incredibly generous and give the kids 2 full weeks of vacation every single quarter, so 8 weeks off a year, we still recover nearly 3 full traditional school years.
The primary question the author asks is why we ever accepted the long summer break in the first place.
Yeah, why do we do it?
Well, we romanticize summer vacation. We view it as an untouchable, sacrosanct pillar of childhood. But the text argues historically that it is merely a leftover habit from a completely different era of human organization.
An agrarian or industrial habit.
Exactly. The global economy does not shut down for 3 months in the summer.
No, it doesn't.
Scientific progress doesn't pause. Adult life doesn't vanish. So why does the cognitive and social infrastructure of public education completely disappear for a quarter of the year?
And it isn't just an inefficiency. The text argues that this summer dead zone is actually one of the primary drivers of inequality in the entire system.
They refer to it as the learning decay cycle.
The learning decay cycle.
Think about the sociological reality of what happens during a 3-month summer break. Wealthy families possess the capital to fill that massive void of time with structured enrichment.
They send their kids to specialized science camps.
They travel globally. They hire private tutors to get ahead for the next year. They provide highly structured, physically safe environments, and they guarantee high-quality nutrition.
The wealthy child's summer is basically an engine of acceleration.
Exactly. But for under-resourced families, those expensive options simply do not exist.
Right.
For children in poorer districts, the long summer often means severe academic drift. It means a lack of daily structure, increased social isolation, and very practically, it often introduces severe food insecurity.
Because they lose the school meals.
Because they have suddenly lost access to the 2 guaranteed meals a day the
Yes.
physical school was providing.
So mechanically, you have the wealthy students spending 3 months accelerating their cognitive development, while the under-resourced students are spending 3 months actively backsliding and dealing with baseline survival needs.
And then September rolls around.
Exactly. We put them all back in the same room, and we spend the first 6 weeks of the fall semester just desperately trying to review what the poorer kids forgot over the summer, while the wealthy kids sit there bored out of their minds.
It's an incredibly destructive cycle.
By implementing a full-year rhythm with shorter, targeted breaks, you eliminate the massive decay cycle.
You keep the cognitive engine warm.
Right. You preserve social and intellectual continuity. And when you pair this continuous calendar with the AI tutor we discussed earlier, the system becomes incredibly resilient.
Oh, the synergy there is amazing.
It is. If a student is on one of those short, one-week quarterly breaks, the AI can maintain a very light, gamified 5-minute daily review just to keep the neural pathways active, ensuring that absolutely no ground is lost.
The author is deeply connecting the concept of time equity with knowledge equity.
But combining these elements creates a fascinating, almost overwhelming intersection of ideas.
Okay, let's explore it.
Let's logically connect the recovered time back to the AI faculty layer. We now have an AI tutor that perfectly and patiently diagnoses exactly what a student knows, and it moves that student forward the exact millisecond they master a concept.
Right.
And we have simultaneously recovered 3 to 4 entire years of calendar time by eliminating the summer dead zone.
Yes.
So what happens to the student who masters the foundational material early?
This is the precise moment where the structural illusion of the old system completely shatters.
How so?
The author demands a total systemic shift from the concept of seat time to the concept of mastery.
Seat time versus master.
In the traditional 180-day human-led model, a student is tethered to the calendar. If a bright student masters fifth grade math in 5 months, the current system tells them to sit quietly at their desk and wait for 7 more months.
Just killing time.
Simply because the calendar dictates that fifth grade takes a year.
Right.
The new model destroys that waiting period. It says you move forward the moment your mastery is mathematically proven by the plumb line.
Which means if we have effectively recovered 4 years of instructional time and children are moving at their own optimized pace based on AI-verified mastery rather than waiting for May to roll around,
You see where this leads?
kids are going to finish the K-12 curriculum drastically earlier.
That is the profound sociological conclusion the author arrives at. By shifting to a full-year, continuously engaged, AI-supported mastery model, a significant percentage of the student population could completely master the entire K-12 foundational plumb line by the time they are 14, 15, or 16 years old.
Okay, I have to jump in here and play devil's advocate, because when I first read that, my immediate reaction was deep concern.
That's fair.
If a 14-year-old finishes the 12th grade curriculum, what are we doing with them? Are we just opening the doors of the high school and throwing a 14-year-old out into the brutal, hyper-competitive adult labor market?
That sounds like a disaster.
Are we saying, congratulations, you passed AP Calculus, now go get a job in a warehouse? Because from a developmental standpoint, a 14-year-old might have the cognitive ability to do calculus, but they absolutely do not have the emotional or social maturity to navigate adult society.
No, of course not.
Pushing them out that early sounds wildly irresponsible.
And the author wholly agrees that throwing an emotionally developing 14-year-old into the adult workforce would be societal malpractice.
Okay, good.
They draw a very sharp, crucial distinction between cheap acceleration and real acceleration.
Cheap acceleration.
Cheap acceleration is an administrative trick. It's just pushing kids out the door as fast as possible to save the district money, completely abandoning them.
Yeah, that's what I was worried about.
Real acceleration is allowing a student to prove mastery against a transparent, rigorous national standard, and then actively opening a door to a higher level of structured development.
So how do we solve the maturity gap?
To solve the maturity gap you just described, the author introduces a concept they call the protected bridge.
The protected bridge. Walk me through the actual reality of that. What does this bridge look like for a 15-year-old who has just mastered the K-12 plumb line?
Well, the core philosophy is that early graduation from the foundational curriculum is not an abandonment by the state. It is early access to specialization.
Okay.
The text details specific, heavily structured destinations for these early graduates. A 15-year-old who finishes the baseline doesn't go to work at a fast food restaurant. They transition into publicly funded, highly supervised programs.
Like what kind of programs?
They might enter an early college engineering foundation track alongside peers their own age. They might enter a dedicated nursing preparation track.
Wow.
They could move into advanced AI systems management, cybersecurity training, high-level welding, aviation mechanics, agricultural technology, or immersive arts conservatories.
So they are still in a protected educational environment. They aren't fending for themselves. They are just moving into highly specialized, purpose-driven structures that actually align with what they want to do with their adult lives.
Exactly.
Instead of sitting in a high school cafeteria for 3 extra years killing time, taking electives they don't care about just to wait for their 18th birthday, they are actually building their future.
The author argues that the purpose of secondary education should not be to act as a daycare facility that keeps young people seated until age 18.
Right.
The purpose is readiness for the next stage of life. If a student achieves that cognitive readiness at age 15, forcing them to wait 3 years is a form of institutional stagnation. The system must honor their pace.
But there is a massive elephant in the room regarding this protected bridge, and it's money.
Ah, yes. The funding.
College and specialized trade schools are astronomically expensive in our current society. If a kid finishes high school at 15 and transitions into an advanced aviation mechanics program or an early engineering degree for the next 3 years, who is actually footing the bill for that?
Good question.
Because if the parents have to pay for it, we are right back to the purchasing lottery.
This is the final, brilliant piece of the economic puzzle the author weaves into the theory.
Okay, let's hear it.
Think about the massive budget of the K-12 public school system.
It's huge.
If a significant portion of the student body is completing their K-12 foundation in 10 or 11 calendar years instead of the traditional 13, you are massively reducing the physical occupancy of the K-12 buildings.
Oh.
You are saving immense, unprecedented amounts of public funds on daily seating, staffing, utility costs, and administrative maintenance for students who have already mastered the material and no longer need to be there.
And because you've moved to a mastery model, you don't need to pay to keep a 17-year-old in a high school seat just to satisfy a calendar requirement.
Exactly the author's point. The argument is that these specific savings must be legally ring-fenced and redirected to fully fund the protected bridge.
So the money follows the kid.
Yes. The tax dollars were already allocated to educate that child until they turn 18. Instead of wasting the final 3 years of that public budget, forcing the student to sit in a holding pattern, you take that exact same money and use it to pay for their nursing prep program, their trade apprenticeship, or their early college engineering degree.
That is incredible.
The savings generated by eliminating unnecessary K-12 seat time are used to transform public colleges and trade schools into a continuous, fully funded, debt-free educational pathway.
Wow. That completely changes the financial trajectory of an entire generation.
It really does.
You are essentially taking the inefficiency of the old calendar and converting it into debt-free higher education.
That's the grand synthesis.
Just taking a breath here, I am honestly marveling at how the author has constructed this. They took the physical reality of hungry kids, the mechanical nature of the textbook industry, the emergence of artificial intelligence, the economics of public tax bases, and the literal human concept of time. And they wove every single thread into one unified, cohesive theory of public education.
It is a breathtaking, grand synthesis of social policy.
I know it really is.
If we were to distill the entire architecture of this new paradigm down to its 3 foundational pillars, they would be, number 1, knowledge equity.
Knowledge equity.
Guaranteeing that every single student, regardless of the wealth of their ZIP code, has access to the exact same living, AI-driven curriculum, the common floor.
Right.
Number 2, time equity.
Time equity.
Reclaiming the societal calendar from the outdated industrial habit of the summer dead zone, ensuring that time finally works as an engine for the student rather than a barrier against them.
And the third pillar.
And number 3, economic equity, taking the massive financial savings generated by digital efficiencies and reduced K-12 occupancy, and aggressively redirecting those funds into feeding students, rebuilding the physical environments of schools, and funding a debt-free bridge into professional adulthood.
It is a total and complete paradigm shift. And bringing this directly back to you, the listener, think about how aggressively this model flips the baseline assumptions we all hold about what schooling actually is. It challenges everything.
Every single one of us grew up accepting the premise that education is a mandatory 13-year holding pattern, followed by the terrifying cliff of crippling debt if you want to specialize or go to college.
Right.
This author is proposing a continuous, fluid public pathway. It shifts the entire societal focus away from the question of how long has this student sat in this chair, and replaces it with the much more respectful question, what has this student mastered, and what incredible thing are they ready for next?
It achieves radical efficiency. But crucially, it does so without sacrificing the core human element.
Exactly.
It utilizes the best, most patient artificial intelligence to deliver knowledge. It utilizes the fullest available calendar to maintain momentum. And it utilizes the fairest possible objective plumb line to measure truth.
So as we wrap up today's deep dive into the educational commons, I want to leave you with one final, deeply provocative thought to mull over on your own.
Something to think about. We have spent our entire lives, for generations, thinking of school as a physical place. You are forced to sit until the calendar finally magically declares that you are an adult.
Right.
But if a 15-year-old can thoroughly master their foundational education, verified not by a broken scale, but by a perfectly calibrated, unbiased plumb line, and that 15-year-old is then free to immediately choose a path in robotics or sustainable agriculture or classic literature without having to wait for permission from a ticking clock. What does that do to our very definition of childhood?
It's a huge question.
By clinging to the 180-day calendar, are we protecting their youth, or by letting them move forward the moment they are ready, are we finally allowing kids to actually rise?